Hey guys, Jay here and welcome to another cosplay work vlog. Today we're going to be working on some 3D printed items for my Cloud cosplay. So a few things real quick before I work on these pieces. If you want to buy these 3D prints and work on them yourself, there'll be a link in the description to the Etsy store where you can buy these. Now you will have to get the shoulder armor with it, and there's nothing I can do about that. I had talked to the guy way ahead of time, like when he was modeling this. So the person printing and selling these is a pretty well-known cosplayer named ModeratelyOKCosplay. So I had been talking to him since then, so he was nice enough to sell me only the two pieces that I needed because I don't need the armor, obviously. But because it's on the Etsy store, you should probably just go do that. Don't bug him about trying to get certain pieces. Just buy all of it, and if you don't need some of it, you don't need some of it. You can also buy the files if you have a 3D printer or know someone with one, and you can get it printed yourself, and you're just paying for the files, which is much cheaper, and you won't have to worry about having to pay for all the pieces because you're not paying as much as if you got the prints. So that's up to you. So in the work vlog video where I did the harness thing, you guys would have seen these pieces, or at least this piece. This was made afterwards, but there was another one of these that had these big screws on it. And then this just looks nicer. This one is old. I made this in 2014, and it does not look good. If you look at it a little closer, it does not look good at all. And it's lopsided because it broke and I had to glue it back together. But it's made of cardboard rings. You can see where the tape is, where I taped the rings together and then tried to like paint over it and stuff like that. And then this one is just some spools on some foam with Velcro. That's all it is. And last, before I get into the actual video of working on these unfinished pieces, I actually have finished pieces. But as you can see, there's a big size difference. So just like the Buster Sword, the first one was way too small, so we made it bigger. So that's going to be the final product, so maybe I can show these off a little better. The final product is going to look a lot nicer than, you know, the plastic or my old ones, so whatever. Also, these are held on by magnets, so they stay on pretty well, but not that well. These magnets aren't as good as I wanted, so instead I have neodymium magnets, so I'm going to use these instead. Anyway, let's get on with the video. So, this 3D print is a little less good. So one side has these rails, kind of, I guess you would call them. I'm not sure what they would be called. And they go in these little slots here that are in the other side. So that way it doesn't slide off and it can stay together. I do need to do a little bit of cleanup, so there's that. And the way I did the last ones was I started off with this sponge sanding thing. We just call it a foam sanding block. Don't know if that's what it's actually called, but this is a very good start. So I just, and you can see it's already like changing color because it's getting the dust in it. So I probably will go through a couple of these little sponge things because they go by really fast. And actually this one on this side is already getting chewed through. So I really need to get a new one. And this is going to take me a couple days, so I'll just, leave everything set up. So I'll just go get more or something. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of places like inside where it's just got a lot of stuff you got to take off. There's a lot of loose pieces where when it prints like this, so the inside has support material or whatever, and then you have to rip all that out. I'm not exactly sure for this one. I didn't watch it print, so I don't know. So you can see it, you can sort of see inside there's these more glossy looking areas that have more like structure to them or something. I'm not actually sure, but those are actually kind of hard to get out, so I'm going to use regular sandpaper there. But I do need to do the surface, so I'm going to do that first. But yeah. So you can see now on camera that it's where it's sanded and where it isn't sanded. It's a gray instead of black. So I'm just going to do this all the way throughout literally every single piece. So there are some sections inside that I want to get smoothed down with a Dremel because they're really starting to like dig into my hands and scratch me and stuff. So it'd be a good idea just to knock that down a little bit. So I'm going to be using this Dremel, and this is loud, so I'm going to be having the volume way down, which I won't be able to even talk over this because of how loud it is. Yeah, so there's like some pieces around the edge that need to be trimmed off. Yeah, there's just a lot that needs to be taken off. I still need to do a little bit of sanding with the sandpaper on the inside, so I'll just do that now. This is just cut off of like the cardboard ring that tape is around when you buy it. It's just basically something like that, and I don't remember what it was for exactly, but I can put it in this like a sled almost, and when you do this with just your hand, it gets really hot, and it actually hurts after a while, so this way it doesn't do that. So I'm just going to go in and I don't know how well you'll be able to even see what I'm doing here, but I'm just going in and, oh, here we go. Just cleaning up and smoothing that out. Now, to be fair, none of this inside is going to be touching my arm anyway. The wrap that goes on the upper part of the arm will wrap under this, so it'll be touching the inside of here and keeping that from touching my hand anyway. So honestly, it's not really that big of a deal, but whatever. Alright, awesome. So that's way better, and it's not pricking me at all like it was earlier. So I'll just continue doing the sanding on this with another one of these when I get a new one, and then I'll be doing the same thing on that one, and basically the same thing on these, except because these are so much smaller in pieces, they don't really have that same thing on the inside. Like these have this, like this obvious line going down them, that probably because of how big it is. These don't have it, so I don't have to worry about that. These are much easier. They feel smoother too than these do, so I'm not exactly sure why, but that's just how they ended up. Alright, went to the store. So, now I have more of those sanding block things. So, let's continue, shall we? Now, I don't know why, but these printed with some holes in them. It's really hard to see. I don't know if you can see them at all, but there's like these little triangle holes in them. I'm going to have to fill those with something. I think it was because the hole had to be bigger for the magnets to fit in. It's really deep. It is 2 magnets deep. Yeah, so they're pretty deep. He said that was probably just a tolerance thing. I didn't tell him about the holes in it because I can just fill them, and it's not a big deal. I don't really mind. But I'm going to have to do that before I glue things in there because it will just leak out. So, but I'm thinking that's what happened there. Nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to make him print new ones of these. These will take forever. Well, they won't take forever. They'll take a while, though. And I want to get these done as soon as possible for this video. So, yeah, there's no reason to have him do that. I probably should test to see if all of these fit in there. All of the screws. So these are all the different bolts. They're just bolts. So I'm going to see. Yeah, they fit just fine, and they look the same as the other one, the other finished stuff. So here's the bolts for the bottom part of here, and then here's the bolts for the top part. And they all fit in just fine, and they look fine. So, not a big deal. So, they fit in actually nice and tight. So, that's good. Yeah. I don't really need to, I don't even know if you could have seen what I did there, but, well, here's this one. I don't know if you saw that one. You can see the other one right here, but, yeah. So, they fit just fine. Now that I think about it, I should show you that these don't fit in the holes here. They ended up printing too small. He said that also might be just a thing that happened with the tolerance or whatever. And oh, that one fits in there just fine. So, oh, I think it might have been just a fluke, maybe. Yeah, okay, and then this one needs to be widened just a little bit. So that one is just a little too small. But the rest of these are wide enough, and they actually have some friction in there. So that's good. But these ones, I think it's just there's just so much on the outside here that when I grind that off, it should help them fit. But we'll see what happens. But anyway, I'm going to do the rest of it off camera because there's really no point in you watching that for like an hour. Okay, small change. These didn't do exactly what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were doing really good, but turns out they weren't doing that great. It's really hard to see on camera, but it didn't really do all that much. So I'm going to move on. It did do a little bit, so there is that. There is use to them. This does hurt your hand after a while. So this is that thing that I did earlier when I scraped along the inside of here. Oh, and this is 180 grit sandpaper. I just looked on the back of the sandpaper. Yeah, this is 180 grit. So this is pretty rough, and that's what you want. Later on, after this, you could use 1000 grit too, but I noticed that this sanded it smooth enough that when I put the primer filler in there, it didn't really matter. It worked out perfectly. I didn't even need to use the finer grit. So I'm going to start off by going against the grain in one of two directions, and then after it gets smooth enough, I'll start doing the circles, which will just even everything out a little bit. Alright, so we're on to the second day now, and I've got these two done completely. The two halves that go on the bangle on the right arm. Well, not completely, obviously. I have them sanded, is what I mean. These are sanded as much as I'm going to get them. They are ready for the next step. This piece right here, which will be the left side of the bracer, it'll go like this. I can tell which side is the left side because this little notchy piece on here, it's this weird thing that sticks up. I don't know what it's for, but it's on the model for Cloud. So yeah, I think it's like his locking mechanism to keep it on his arm or something. But I can tell that is supposed to that thing's supposed to face sort of diagonal left on him. So when he's wearing it, this is straight on. He would be wearing it like that, so it'd be facing that way. So I know that means this is the left side. So yeah, the left side is done for the next step. Now I'm going to be working on the right side of the bracer, and I have to do the same thing on the inside where I sand it all down. But like I said before, this one has really messy bottom. I'm not exactly sure why it did that, but it's a lot messier than the other one was. One sec, I'll go get the other one and show you. So the other one that I had finished, you can see on both, hopefully you can see anyway, on camera, it's nowhere near as messy. It's quite flat actually. It's still like, it has a little bit of a texture there, but it's not bad. It doesn't really have that bad of a texture on it like this one does. This one's like, it looks like just melted plastic was just laid all over it. That could be a mistake from how it was laying down, because this also has these raised notch things that go into the holes on the other side. So that could be why it did that, and it just wasn't playing nice with this print. But these take forever to print. He told me that the bracer itself took 21 hours. So that would mean half of it, which would be this, well, not even including the screws, this might take a good, I want to say, what, 7-8 hours just to do this one? And that's quite a while, and I need to get this video out, so I'm not even going to bother having him try to reprint it. I'm just going to sand it all off. And to do that, I'm going to be using the Dremel again. Okay, now that I've thoroughly made a big mess, there's plastic everywhere, and a bunch of sanding shavings, we're ready to move on to the next part. Everything is sanded as good as it's going to get. So now I'm going to widen out the holes that need to be widened out, which are mostly on this, the second piece that I did. A lot of the holes are, yeah, none of them are big enough right now. Nothing fits. So I have to figure out which one of these. I think it's this one. Yeah. Oh, you can still barely see the mark I made. I forgot I had made a mark. And yeah, so you can see the mark there. Well, I can. You probably can't. So I have this Dremel cutting bit. I don't know how well you can see this either, but it's just a little cutting bit. I just know it as a cutting bit. That's all I know. So what I'm going to do is hold it. I'm not going to be able to talk to you while I'm doing it, so because it's going to be loud. I'm going to go into the hole and then just slowly widen it out. That's all I'm doing until a magnet fits in there. That was it. That's all I needed to do. So now I can get a magnet in there, magnet in there. I can just do that all the way around and they all fit. So I can get a magnet in each of these, but I can't get one in these, and that's because the marred area that was all nasty overlapped. So I have to get rid of a lot of that. So I'm going to do the same thing and just keep doing this until it fits, basically. Alright, so now just to show you, there, I did make them a little big, so some of them are a little loose, but I'm going to have to sand that down a little bit again, but whatever. But you can see that if I can get these things disconnected. Yeah, these are hard to work with, but as you can see, I can get one in each thing there. So now I don't need to worry about the magnets for a little while. Those I'm saving until the end. I'm going to glue them in after everything's painted. Now I can get ready to prime these and then wet sand them afterwards. So I've got all these little strips of sandpaper here that I cut. This, I'm going to need more than this, so I have this here. Yeah, I have more than enough. I should only need like half of another sheet or something. And then this one's pretty gone. This one still has some left on it, but it didn't work as well as I thought it did. So I learned the hard way, I guess. Those sort of worked, but I ended up going with this instead. So this is just your typical sanding block. You put the sanding paper in it, and then you use it to sand so that you don't hurt your fingers or your hand when you're doing it. This is the original primitive palm sander. So yeah, this worked a lot better. It did heat up because friction makes heat, so it did heat it up and start melting some of it, which can be good and can be bad. Luckily, it didn't do too much, so it didn't damage it. So when I went back over it with the little strips and this, because you still need to do this, when I did that with it, it smoothed it out so that it looked better. But yeah. But anyway, let's move on to the primer. I'm going to be using automotive primer. I'll probably talk about it while I show you B-roll of me doing it or something, because I can't bring all this stuff out there to record like that. I can probably bring the camera just to record down while I spray, but I'm not bringing my microphone or the second camera or anything. So you'll just be seeing B-roll over this. So what I'm doing is I have this automotive spray paint that's a primer, and it's actually for metal, so it's really good. And I wasn't sure if it would be good for this type of project, but I used it on the other one, and as you saw, it worked just fine. So what I did was I just sprayed it on a couple of coats. I made it a couple of thin coats, but then a couple of thick coats after that, and made it so that you could only barely tell that there's print lines in it, the layers. So it looked a lot more smooth, and then we're going to come back and wet sand it after we're done with that. So now that everything is primed, it actually looks like I don't need to do too much. Where I used the Dremel on a lot of this, it got kind of scratchy. It's basically impossible to see on camera, but I don't know what it is. It's almost like dust got trapped in there or something, and I wiped it all down and everything, so that shouldn't be a problem. But it did it anyway, so I have to wet sand it to get that off of there. So what I'm going to be doing is taking the sandpaper, again it's the exact same sandpaper, just cut into strips again, and then I'm just going to wet it and sand it. So I have this little thing of water here. This is just I don't know what they're called. They're like a condiment cup where you'd put like ketchup and stuff in for restaurants. And using them like this with water, I can reuse them. Or if I use like paint of some kind, like a black wash, then I can just throw them out and I don't have to worry about washing them out. So that helps. So let's get right on into this. So basically just dip this in like so and then start sanding. And I'm going to sand in a circular motion, so this will just be the most even that it's going to get. That actually took off all of whatever that was on there. So that worked. I'm just going to do that all the way around it so that it's all even. That way it's all got a nice even wet sanded coat on it, just because it'll make it more uniform. So I'm just going to do that a few times. Alright, so just like that, just a couple of times over, and it actually looks a lot nicer. I may have to go over it again, so sometimes you will have to go over it a couple of times and then hit it again with the same primer. I might have to do that. It looks like there's a chance that I'm going to have to. I can see in here in these lower areas where it was harder to sand that I didn't get it too well when I first sanded it, especially on this one. I can see a lot of lines there where it didn't fill in very well. So I might have to go back over it with the primer again after I'm done. These ones I'm not going to have to do that to, the bangle pieces, because they were already pretty smooth as they were, so sanding those smoother was much easier. So I'm just going to keep doing that, and hopefully I don't have to hit it again. We'll see what happens. So now I've gone ahead and done another coat of primer over this and then wet sanded it all over again on everything. And then I also sort of used primer on the screws and the bolts and stuff. They're not great, but whatever. It doesn't do a whole lot, and you can't see it on camera at all because it's too small and it's on, black. So it's near impossible to see on camera. But under the right lighting, you can tell there's like a texture in there, and sometimes it's worse on one side than the other. So I decided I might as well just cover that up. So I just did a light one coat over the entire thing just to cover that up a little bit. It doesn't really get all the way on it because the underside still kind of looks like that, but it'll be fine. I'm not worried about it at all. So what we're going to be doing now is painting and dry brushing. So the regular paint, that primer is just the regular paint. I don't need to do anything to it. That's already the color I want because it's like a dark gray color in the first place. It's like a gray that's been beaten down to show the chips to be silver. So that's perfect. This is the exact color that I used on the sword and the armor, so that way it all matches. That's why I wanted to use this stuff specifically, because it was the same color. I wouldn't have to color match. So for the majority of coloring, I'm going to do this a little different than it probably should. The middle section here, it's hard to tell, but there are two parts to the middle section. That's not exactly accurate. What is more accurate is two that are like this, where it's all raised up, where there's 3 steps here, and then a middle section. These are quite even. They're only about 0.5 millimeter apart, maybe, like in thickness. So it should be higher like this one over here, but it's a little too late for that. I'm not going to have him redo anything. I'm not going to scrutinize his model, so I'll just go with it and call it good. Now on the original designs, because I will probably use this for multiple designs, so I want to make this as versatile as possible. So the one that I normally did was Dissidia, and I want to match that one, but also make it so I can use it on my new one. But they're both a little bit different. The main difference is that middle section that I was talking about. That's supposed to be that larger center. In all of the versions except the new one, the remake, Every other version is black right here. This whole section is black. In the remake, it looks like he has two of these pieces right here, these big cuff pieces with 3 sections, and he just has 2 of those. Just one's a little bit smaller on the bottom and one's a little bit bigger on the top. And it looks like the glove just goes up all the way through that. I'm not doing that, obviously. I could just cut this all off with a Dremel and wear it that way. Which I might actually do at some point. I might buy another one off of him and have him just cut this middle part out, and then I could just use it that way, and I'll just see what happens, and then if it doesn't work, I'll just eat the cost and not worry about it. So because of all that stuff, though, we're going to be painting it black. His gloves are brown, so the one that goes through it looks like brown leather. Like if you look really close, I'll show a picture or something, but it looks like brown leather. And it looks the exact same texture as his glove. But we're just going to use black anyway. So we're going to do this last because we're going to have to cover up some silver. So we're going to dry brush first. Now for dry brushing, I've talked about this multiple times in many other videos where I've done this stuff. But I have a tutorial which, I don't know which side, I think it's going to be this side. I'm not 100%. Whatever. The one that pops up in the card. That'll be the tutorial for weathering and dry brushing and stuff like that. So if you want to check out more of it and a more in-depth tutorial, check that out. But for now, I'm going to show you with just these 2 brushes here. So these are just dollar store brushes. This one actually I think is a Walmart brush, but you can get these at the dollar store. These are not plastic ones. I don't know exactly what they are. This one says 100% pure bristle. I don't know what that means, but this is from the dollar store, this bigger one. And this smaller one here, again, I have no idea, but it's also a made in China one. But it feels roughly the same, maybe even a little more coarse. But you want them to be these nice, thick, coarse ones that don't have much movement. So like with this one here, you'll notice it flows and it's really soft. And you don't want that for dry brushing. You want these heavier, thicker, harder to move bristles. So let's get on to it. So we're going to be using silver metallic paint. It's just acrylic paint. We're just going to use this. So I have one of these little tray things. These are also at the dollar store. You can get like 6 of them at the dollar store in a pack. So just pour some paint out. And then we're going to need this, which is just a bunch of napkins put together. And then we're going to be painting everything. So to start out, I'm going to be using the thicker one because that covers more area. The thinner one will be better for like inside this smaller area here. Just some finer detail, whatever. Just need to use the big one for now. So just dip it in, wipe most of it off, and then just start hitting the edges like this. I am not sure you can even see that. Yeah, that's probably better. I didn't have this light on over here. But yeah, so you just keep doing this all the way around it. And just, it doesn't have to look nice. It's not going to look nice, that's the point. And then the scratches that we made by wet sanding it in a circle, kind of, they make like little scratches going in all different directions. This would have gotten hit by a lot of different things in the game, so I'm making it look like it's got scratches in every direction. That's why I did that. Now you could also just scratch it in every direction, but the circles are easier, so that's why I do that. And then we're just gonna keep doing this. And then in some places you're going to want to do it heavier than other places. There are like areas where you want it to look uneven. You don't want it to look like an even coating all the way around, or it won't look realistic at all. So maybe you'll take a little bit more paint on it, like not take as much off. Like let's say that there's still a lot on there. Then I can make it like real heavy right there. And the bristles coming out. That's dollar store quality for you. Just bristles come right out. So maybe, yeah, so you can make it look a little more chipped right there. Just do that all the way around. And if you can see, this is why I haven't painted the black part yet, because this is touching that bottom part and there's some silver on there. If that was black already, I would have had to go over it again. And I don't want to do that. So it's best to just do that after you've already weathered everything. Usually you would do it before and then mask it off, but there's really no need to do that. So you just do this over every edge until you're happy with the way it looks. I'm happy with that side, so I'm going to move on to the next side. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with how the faces turned out of all this. So I like the way it looks. I'm going to do a little bit of detail work with the smaller one in a minute, but actually I should do this with the smaller one. I'm going to be doing the corners now. So obviously a 3D print that's in two halves is going to have seams down the sides. There's nothing you can do about that. Like, you can clearly see a seam down the side here. That's actually in the design, in the game. So that actually exists. So he made sure that he put the seam where it was supposed to go in the actual build. So because it's two pieces though, there's dry brushing along the edge of both seams. So I have to do that. And it's supposed to be pretty heavy, so you can see a whole bunch of silver coming through on the seams. This is where it would be taken off and put back on and getting knocked into itself a whole lot. So you got to make it look a little bit more worn than normal. And don't worry, I will get you better pictures of all this stuff because you're going to need to see this obviously better than whatever this camera can show. So I'm going to get you the best lighting and the best pictures at the end of the video or something. Or I might like B-roll them, I don't know. I'll see what I can do. But for now, that's not done. I totally forgot the bottom part here that's in the middle section. And that's why I forgot about it, because it still looks like it's part of the middle section. It's not supposed to be. Another reason why I didn't paint that black. Obviously I have to go over that section right there. So before I go ahead and finish the other side of the bracer, I'm just going to do the bangle really fast on camera so that you guys can see it. And then I'll move on to everything else off camera. These I'm just going to take silver paint and just paint them. All of the bolts. I'm just going to take the silver acrylic and just paint it because they're supposed to be brighter silver and not all dark and dingy. So yeah, you don't need to see that either. You could spray paint them if you want, but it's much easier for me to just sit here and do them all, not fight with them. So let's do that. So we're going to do the exact same thing, just dry brush all the way down on both sides. Now this one will be a brighter silver than that because these ones, well, I think they're a whole different material or something in the game. Like they're a whole different type of metal that he has. But they are a brighter silver with like a lot more chipping on them and a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm just dry brushing the entire thing. So I'm going like across the face on both sides. Instead of like on these where I wasn't going across the whole face. It's still darker in the middle. These ones I want to go across the whole face because it's still supposed to be just a little bit brighter. That's just how these look. But I also want to make sure that the edges get a ton of that silver. So I will be going back over these edges here with the detail brush with more silver on it. So this piece also, just like the bracer, has two pieces for a reason because it actually has two pieces in the game. And I can show you a picture of that just so you can see it. But so we're going to do the exact same thing on the sides and make it look like the seam has some wear to it. And this one, in the game, it even has significant wear on it, like a lot of silver showing. Also, I'm going to have to end up doing the top and bottom sides of these. There's just no way that's going to happen right now. This is all still kind of wet, and I can still get like paint from my hands onto it, and I don't want to do that yet, so I'm waiting for it to dry anyway. So when that's all dry, I'll do the same thing just on those pieces. So you're basically just applying the exact same thing to the top and bottom. So I'm going to do the rest of this off camera and I'll be right back. Plus, this camera's dying. Alright, now with the painting all the way done, all we have to do is glue everything together. So, everything is just going to get glued right into the holes. I do need to make room for most of these because, you know, stuff got inside of the holes, and then since these got painted, they're a little thicker now, so some of them don't fit in the holes correctly. So, I have to, you know, make it so that they fit. And to do that, we're going to be using the Dremel with that cutting bit again that I had before. So, I don't know exactly how far these go down, but I'll start cutting them down, like starting at the bottom. I'll start cutting all the way around it until it'll fit in. I would cut in here, but I really don't want to do that right now. That sounds like a bad idea, so I'm just not going to. So this is easier, just to do this until it fits all the way in. You know what? Instead, I'm going to be using this sanding drum here because this might go a little bit faster. This is starting to chew too much and catch, and I don't want that. So, I'm just going to remove that and put the sanding bit back in. And now that that's all done and I know that they all fit where they need to go, I can start gluing everything into place. So, because these ones are easier to fit in, I don't know why, these holes are just a little bit bigger. I only had to grind one of these, and that was this one because it was lopsided a little bit on the very bottom, so there was like an extra lip on it that wouldn't let it go in. But the rest of these I didn't have to sand at all, so they fit a lot better. But anyway, so to glue them in, I'm going to be using this Loctite glue. Don't have very much of it left. Hopefully this is enough. If not, I'll have to go buy more, and I don't even know where has any right now that we can go to and not spend hours in line. So we'll see what happens. So what I do is I take the one piece out, and then I'll just put a little bit of this in there. It's really hard to show you how much because you're not going to be able to see it. And then I'll take and put a little bit around the screw itself so that it holds on, and then just stick it in place. And this stuff dries pretty fast normally, so it should only take about 2 minutes maybe to fully dry, because it was like a kind of like a pool in there to have enough to where it would stay. So after about 2 minutes that'll stay. So I'm going to do that to these two first, like this, these two top ones, or the two center ones, or whatever you want to call them. And then just so you know, I do put some on the inside wall, so you're going to want to do that too. Alright, so I'll do those, and then I'll set these aside. Then I'll do the two middle ones here. Then I'll do that to the rest of them, and then after that, I'll be able to hold this up on something like, let's use this tape thing for example. I can set it up on the tape thing like that so that these are more vertical, because when these are like this, the glue can just spill right out, and we don't want that. It can, you know, gravity. So I'll have this propped up like this for the two sides, and the other way for the other side. You know what I mean. So that's how I'm going to be doing all of that. But yeah, so I'm just going to glue these together, I guess. So this one I ended up putting a little bit too much in. Luckily I have this napkin here from when I did the dry brushing, so I can just wipe the excess off. Just be careful, I guess. And of course I would run out of super glue right in the middle of this, so I have to go buy more. So now that I've got some new super glue, in fact I have two, I'm not going to run out this time. Anyway, we're moving on to the magnets. So this one I have started putting together. It's really difficult on the bangle pieces because of those holes that are in the top that I just didn't fill on accident. So I have to make sure I don't spill through those. So what I've done to make sure that the magnets actually face each other the right way, and I am doing the bangles with two magnets in them that are put together, and then two on the other side obviously, so it'll be like two on this side and then two on that side, and then they'll go together. So what I did was, while they were together on either side of the opposing sides, I drew on it with Sharpie, which won't come off. So obviously that's so I know which sides oppose each other, so I know to put it in the right way. So Right now I have to put this in the correct side. So I noticed that the little hole that's on them, if I put them these specific directions like this, then the two biggest holes are on one side, and the smallest hole and one that isn't even a hole on it are on the other side. I can always just make it so that side is showing, so I can hide where the holes are. So I'm going to put it together that way. So that means I have to carefully do the holes first, which sucks. But yeah, so I just put a little bit of glue in, just like everything else I was doing. Just put some glue in, and then make sure this is the right way, and slip the magnet in. Then I can lightly put some glue in it around it. I can even put some in the little hole, and then wipe off any excess that comes out of the top, and then just basically hold it and move it around so it doesn't spill everywhere until it's done. This one's basically dry. It's like drying still inside, but it's not dripping out like this one is right now. Oop, there we go. There's some more dripping out of the hole there. So I gotta clean that up. I just clean it up as it comes, because once it dries on there, it's not coming back off. I have to sit here for a while, so I don't want to sit here on the camera and hold this for like 10 minutes. I'll just do them all, and then just remember we're doing one on each one of these. So each of these holes is only going to have one of the magnets in it, and you just make sure that they're not opposing each other and you'll be fine. Okay, so that was the entire build for both of the pieces. They're both basically done. I don't think I have to do anything else for them to be completed. Just so you guys do know, this did take 4 days to finish both of these. Off and on working, I would work like every couple hours or something, and I'd have to let things dry and all that kind of stuff. So with all of that, it took about 4 days. So yeah, if you want to make this, again, I will leave a link to the store for ModeratelyOKCos's Etsy down in the description. I'll just link this one, but his store has a bunch of other stuff. Atlas, actually, my friend Atlas, who goes to conventions with me and cosplays with me, he's going to be doing Reno, and he got the Reno file for the 3D print for his baton from the same person, and he had his brother print it because it was cheaper, whatever, but he got that, so if I can get pictures of that, you know, I'll show you guys what it looks like. But he does have some pretty cool stuff on there. He also has a Buster Sword that you can get I think you can get the file for that, but you can also just have him print it out and send it to you. He's also got a couple other things on there that are pretty cool. I really want his Rufus Shinra gun from the new remake, but that ain't gonna happen because that's expensive. But it's cool. But anyway, if you want to go look at his stuff, again, go in the description. There'll be a link. And then I'll link to his Twitter and anything else I can find that he wants me to link him to. But anyway, that's going to be it for the end of this work vlog. If you like it, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Subscribe for more. And I'll see you guys later.